So I've got some questions for you. Question number one, who would you trust to manage your medical decisions if you were unable to do so for yourself? Question two, who would you trust to manage your finances if you were unable to do so for yourself? Question three, who would you trust to raise your children if you were unable to do so yourself? Okay, are we having fun yet? Today's video is about estate planning. And look, when you hear estate planning, if you're going, estate, is that like some British mansion? No. Estate planning, all that refers to is the management of you and your affairs, usually in the context of something morbid happening to you. And look, I just want to address the elephant in the room. Nobody likes talking about this stuff for obvious reasons. We don't like to think about our own mortality. We don't like to think about bad things happening to us. But let me take a different twist on this. There's actually a fourth question that's kind of implied when I ask those questions, which is question four. Who would you want to actually answer those questions? Meaning, who do you want to decide that who you're going to trust with your medical decisions, your finances, your family? Now, ideally, you would want to answer those questions for yourself. And that's all estate planning is, which is today, of sound body and mind, you can actually answer those questions and indicate in legal documents who it is that you trust to handle these different things, as opposed to, a court or some third party deciding that for you when it's already too late. Okay, so let me just lay it all out for you. Here's what I'm trying to do today. I do want to educate you on a couple of basic estate documents, but really, full transparency, what I'm trying to do here, I just want to impress upon you the importance of getting these documents executed, signed, and done. I don't expect you to remember all the terminology I use and all of that. I just want you to take away from this is really important. I need to get this done. And I'll even at the end kind of give you some practical next steps as to how you would actually go about doing it. All right, so let's start with the first document on our list, and that is your medical power of attorney. So the question is, who would you trust to make medical decisions for you? So think about a scenario, and again, this is all going to be morbid, so forgive me in advance. Let's say you're in a coma, right? So you're laying in the hospital, stable but unresponsive, but you can't make your own medical decisions. This legal document, the medical power of attorney, it's where you indicate the individual who you trust to work with the doctors to make your medical decisions on your behalf. Now, in this document, it's going to list the person you trust first and foremost, but then it'll also list successor individuals. For example, if the first individual you indicate is unavailable or for whatever reason can't fulfill that role, you can indicate alternates to actually fill that role for you. Now, if you're in this scenario, then likely, your finances are also going to come into play, right? So let's say you're the person who you've indicated in your medical power of attorney is making different medical decisions. Well, likely your finances are going to need to be used to fulfill your care, right? So that brings us to the next document. Sometimes it's called the financial power of attorney. Okay? Sometimes it's called the durable power of attorney. But in general, this is the person that you would trust to manage your finances. And like in the medical power of attorney, you can also list successors to fill that role if the first person is unavailable. And you can also even itemize the different things that they're allowed to do or not allowed to do with all of your financial affairs. Sometimes people just put a blanket, I trust this person, they can do basically anything for me. Other times there are specific items in that list that are withheld for whatever reason. But the point is you're indicating the individual that you trust to manage your finances if you are unable to do so. The third document we'll just briefly touch on today is likely one that you've heard of, and it's your will. Your last will and testament, that's the document where you list out how your property is to be divided. And as I mentioned at the start of the video, if you do have minor children, you will also indicate who you trust to raise your children after your passing. Now, there's a couple points I want to kind of touch on as far as best practices for these documents and other estate documents that you may have. And first and foremost, it's best practice to go ahead and speak with the individuals that you name in these documents and ask them and inform them that you're considering them to fulfill these roles. Because you certainly don't want it to be a surprise in any one of these extreme scenarios where they suddenly find themselves in this role without advance notice from you. So do speak to those individuals. And the other thing I would say is, let's say you go ahead and knock all these documents out, you get them in place. Well, I want you to know you can amend them after the fact, right? So if you're cruising through life and then something changes such that you would want to change these instructions, you can at any time go back and amend or redraft any one or all of these documents. So it's not set in stone once you do it. In a similar vein, you do want to review these documents documents every couple of years to make sure that they're still according to your wishes, and at certain life events, right? If you have them drafted before you have children, and then you do have children, you want to go back and revisit it, right? Or let's say you get married, get divorced, right? You want to go back with these different life changes and review these documents, make sure they're still according to your wishes. I started the video by asking you some questions. Who would you trust to manage your medical decisions, your finances, to raise your children even? So think about this, okay? This is where I'm going to try and scare you into actually getting this done. Let's say you don't answer those questions. Let's say you don't do your estate documents. And then one of these scenarios does happen to you. You are in a coma. And then all your loved ones are standing around and they amongst themselves are trying to figure out who it is that you would trust. That is a sticky situation. Do your loved ones a favor and go ahead and answer all of these questions for them. So that way there's no confusion and, God forbid, no disagreement about what your wishes actually are, because all of that's just answered in advance. So you're ready to get started and ready to get your estate documents in place. What does that look like? If you were to go and get your estate documents done right now, what would you do? Who would you call? Where would you go? If you're thinking through that process and drawing a blank, let me help you out. Okay, there's a couple of different ways you could go about this. Number one, you could consult directly with an estate attorney. You can Google one, ask a friend. On our website, we have a list of different attorneys who do this type of work. The other one is, since this is the NextGen series, right, and you're likely pretty tech savvy anymore, a lot of people have turned to online software solutions to actually have their estate documents drafted. So much in a similar way that people use software to file their taxes, there's online legal tools that will actually guide you through the process of answering different questions, and it will generate the documents with instructions as to how to properly execute them. So you've got a couple of different tools at your disposal. I would encourage you, given the importance of this topic, create a clear timeline for yourself. Okay, today is X date, and by this date in the future, I want to have this done, right? Hold yourself to that. Tell a family member, tell a friend, hey, here's what I'm working on and here's when I'm having it done. And that will hold yourself accountable to go ahead and get this really important task done.